We're just over a week into Season 4, and with more data on how heroes are performing, I thought I'd rank all 37 heroes in the game right now. This video was also heavily inspired by Pox and Nox. In last place, which should come as no surprise, we have Roadhog. If I dare speak about how bad this hero is, this video is going to get demonetized, and I will be, in the wise words of Jose Mourinho.
If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
After Hog, which some might say is an interesting pick, I have Lifeweaver. Now a week or two ago, I thought this guy will likely be underwhelming, but will have at least some use at high levels. Well, I was actually wrong. This guy is more trash than I thought. Now he's gonna get some changes and definitely gonna get some buffs soon, and he's honestly a few small buffs away from actually being a competent hero. If I had to make an educated guess, his Thorn Volley spread is gonna be reduced, his Life Grip CD is gonna be reduced, and just by those two changes, he's already gonna be doing much better. But right now, when people like ML7 are getting less than 2k damage per 10 and is doing Zen levels of healing whilst also not having consistent levels of utility to make up for that, it's hard saying that this guy has any potential at all. At 35, I have Pharah. The hero is still reliant on Mercy, especially at the higher levels, and you have to be Yazan or LBBD7 to get use out of her. She's still strong if you know what you're doing, and if you can play cover really well, but there's just better heroes higher up. At 34, I have Genji. Similar to Lifeweaver, Genji is just a few small buffs away from jumping 10 or 20 spots in this list. He's definitely nowhere near as bad as people on Twitter love to make him out to be, but he just needs a little push by increasing his damage and or his clip size. At 33, I have Orisa. If the devs increased her range by just 5 meters, she'd be in the perfect spot in my opinion. And whilst Orisa does have CC compared to her competition, allowing her to be a slightly stronger pick against someone like a Doomfist, the punching power and damage just isn't there anymore. Speaking of someone with a lot of punching power though, at 32, I have Bastion. Bastion was and will always be a great pick at the lower ranks, stomping the competition. But the higher you climb, the harder it is to get value out of your turret form cycles. Combine that with your big ass hitbox, and it's hard to put Bastion any higher up. At 31, I have Ashe. Here's the perfect time to clarify that the gap between each placement is really small, and a placement like 31 doesn't mean that the hero is bad. With every hero in this list, barring Hog and Lifeweaver, if you're good at the hero, you're gonna win games. But for someone like Ashe, I just think there's better, more versatile options than Ashe at the moment. And you're gonna be hearing that term a lot, versatility. At 30, I have Torb. This was again a really hard placement because Torb is super strong in the lower ranks and especially against Tracer more generally speaking. But again, versatility is the name of the game here, and other heroes above him I believe are just more versatile in more situations. At 29, I have Reinhardt. Put me on Lijiang Control Center and there's rarely a better tank than Ryan, but put me on Dorado and I'm going to be struggling. Reinhardt is what I believe to be one of the worst tanks to solo queue in the entire game because he relies too much upon external factors to get the most out of him. You pretty much need a Lucio and a great map and high healing to be able to do anything on the hero. At 28, I have Jungle Queen. Similar issues to Reinhardt, but has slightly more versatility thanks to her range, and her ultimate is arguably stronger. Not to mention, her hitbox is also pretty slender. At 27, I have Junkrat. The hero's one-shot combo is still annoying to play around, but that concussion mine nerf he received a while ago certainly hurt how impactful he can be across the boards. Especially on more open maps, you really need to be precise with your flanks and your one-shots. At 26, I have Moira. That Coalescence buff was definitely a huge boon for Moira, but fundamentally as a character, she's still kind of a Walmart Kiriko. Damage and healing is all she provides, which is enough for her to secure a 26 spots. At 25, I have Mei. Mei is more versatile than what I initially gave her credit for. A top 3 hero when all the stars align, but thanks to her wall, she has just about enough versatility to make her work on more open maps. Just know what you're doing with your wall. At 24, I have Sombra. In solo queue, I still think there's other flankers with more carry potential, like a Tracer, but especially in organised or even just higher levels of play, her ability to shut down or control flanks is really strong with hack from Invis. She's versatile when you need her to be. At 23, I have Sigma. My opinion on Sigma hasn't really changed too much. Unique and strong on maps like Junkertown, but still flexible enough to be played on maps where broadier heroes may outshine him. At 22, I have Mercy. Pocket your DPS I guess. Weak against dive, strong with poke, dependent on map geometry and team composition to get the most value out of her. Just missing out on the top 20, I have Doomfist. I recently made a video on all the dive tanks, so you can go check that out for a slightly more informed opinion. In short, he's got strong burst mobility and burst damage that give him his edge, but not the most flexible option out there. Now entering the top 20, I have Cassidy. I gave Cassidy quite a fair amount of flack in my tier list, and I think that whilst my reasoning was fair, my placement wasn't. He's still super versatile, and that range buff he received a while ago really does help Cassidy keep up his ground against the other hit scan options. Speaking of hit scan options, Soldier's up next. I genuinely think at this point, Cassidy and Soldier are interchangeable. What made me choose Soldier was his own self-reliance and his mobility that make him just a bit more versatile. In short, he's a hybrid of flankers like Tracer and Sombra, as well as traditional hit scans like Cassidy and Ashe. Still not strong against dive though. A hero who's also not strong against dive, Zarya comes in at the 18th spot, just over halfway in. She's kind of a glass cannon of a tank. High damage, but the lowest sustain out of all the tanks there. If you have good bubble discipline, you can still single-handedly carry games. Reaper comes in just shy out of the top 15. He's either a frontline tank shredder or a backline flanker. But sometimes, if you can create the distance from the Reaper, or you force out his Wraith early, the guy is pretty much useless. Now a hero that can certainly feel useless to players that don't know what they're doing, Symmetra can certainly fit that description. Her TP kinda reminds me of Maze Wall in that there's so many different uses to your TP that on pretty much any map and against pretty much any composition, you'll find some use out of it. Your orbs are also really slept on in terms of their damage threats. However, whenever you're playing less of a broadly style Symmetra with your beam and playing more around your TP and range spam, it can feel like you're doing fuck all sometimes. Now in the top 15, I have Winston, who I recently denoted as the third strongest dive tank option. Winston's cleave damage, and especially the utility in his bubble, carry him up this high. The amount of attention he can draw, and the duration that he can do it for, is something that other tanks wish they could do. Primal Rage can also be a free kill if you know your mechanics, as well as drawing out even more attention away from the front line. Really, it's his lack of range and ability to control flanks that drag him down a peg. Someone who can control flanks well though, is Zenyatta. Shockingly survivable if you have good positioning, and funnily enough, because of how terrible Life Weaver is, it reminds me of how strong Zen can be. Long range maps are of course his favourites, but against dive, you do have the tools to control flanks and prevent a dive, or at least preventing a good one, from occurring at all. At lucky number 13, I have Sojourn. Sojourn's placement both here and back in my tier list was mainly caused by her other options being nerfed, most notably Cassidy and Ashe. Cassidy kinda gatekept how aggressive Sojourn could be, and now that's no longer really an issue. Aggressive overclocks can now be done more consistently. Next up, I have Echo, the most versatile poke dive hero in the game. She can assassinate backlines, deal with pharmacy single-handedly, poke out tanks, or even control flanks if need be. Someone who isn't as versatile, but is still super strong due to one aspect of their kits, I have Widowmaker. Considering the drought of one-shots in the game, due to the somewhat recent Hog and Sojourn nerfs, heroes like Widow and Hanzo have understandably become more popular. The only thing preventing Widowmaker from climbing up is her lack of sustain, and how map geometry can affect how impactful you can be. Just after breaking in the top 10, I have Lucio. For those who've watched my Lucio guide, you'll be familiar with the Reddit, Run It, or Leave It playstyles, which show off his versatility. Maybe if he had a bit more direct or independent utility, like an Ana or a Kiriko, he'd be a few spots higher. Following Lucio, I have Hanzo. Some people gave me flack for putting Hanzo above Cassidy, and I genuinely don't know why, especially after the nerfs. Cassidy might be the slightly better all-around pick, purely because Hanzo isn't amazing into dive, but ignoring Hanzo's one-shot potential, scouting information, vertical mobility, and storm arrow burst damage is frankly delusional to me. What hopefully shouldn't be delusional is placing Bull in the top 8. Not gonna talk too much about Bull here, since I did that last video, but he's overall a strong solo queue pick. Next, at everyone's favourite number 7, I have Baptiste. Jack of all trades hero, what can I say? Only thing missing is maybe that mobility that Kiriko has, or the utility that Ana, or again, Kiriko has, but it's tough to be annoyed if you have a Baptiste on your team, unless you're running dive. Just missing out on the top 5, I have Brigitte. So many people were dick riding me in the comment section, saying how people were overhyping Brig's ultimates. And sure, people like Tomito and Flats were certainly hyperbolic, but I urge you to watch the background gameplay. This is in a Grandmaster lobby by the way. I single-handedly win this point for my team because of the new rally, and keep in mind, the enemy team have the positional advantage, and my Ana is dead too. If this was old rally, I'd think twice about doing this, and would probably give up second point here. Unfortunately, I also have some people telling me that you can't be aggressive anymore in rally, which sure, towards the end of your rally, you need to tone the aggression, but at the start, you can be really aggressive, especially if you've already closed the distance. I just don't get the Brigitte hate. Now in the top 5, I have Ana. The only comps Ana isn't top tier in right now are Brawl mirrors and poke mirrors. In cases like those, you might prefer Baptiste since Mei Walls can split off your LOS very easily and Baptiste has more poke damage. But Ana's utility in nade and sleep dart, even after the nerfs, is kinda unprecedented. Land a big nade and you win a teamfight, even with Suzu on the field. Someone with even more versatility than Ana is D.Va. I again have already talked about D.Va extensively, but in short, you'd be hard pressed to find a situation where D.Va is completely useless. Some heroes are better than her for certain situations, but for being a jack of all trades and master at few, D.Va's your gal. Earning the bronze medal in this list, I have Ramattra. By far the best Pokeball tank available, only struggling on maps with excessive high grounds, but even then, your Omnic form can make up for that. I said everything I needed to in my tier list, and that still applies now. In runners up, I have Tracer. The big buffs don't really affect Tracer as much as I thought they would, since you either just disengage or you post bomb Brig, and considering there's really a handful of maps she's not great on, it really goes to show how great of an all-around pick Tracer can be. Now in first place, I have Kiriko. This hero needs to be nerfed, and the only reason she isn't getting nerfed is because in metal ranks, nobody knows how to play her. But the fact that Suzu is arguably stronger than Immortality, and that her teleport is the strongest 7-second cooldown in the game, and that she can slide into pretty much any team composition, Kiriko really does deserve the number 1 spots. And that's it for the list. Again, especially in the middle, a lot of these spots can be interchangeable, so let me know your thoughts down below. Until next time.